Welcome to the Dom Sub Devotion Podcast. In this episode, we talk about feminine emotion. What do we do as dominants to help our submissives express their emotions? How do submissives learn to speak up and share what they're feeling rather than suppressing? And why is this valuable? This is what we get into in this discussion on this episode of the podcast today, where Dawn and I both share our sides of how we've dealt with and really come to appreciate and value her expression. The expression of emotion and the emotion of the submissive is something that is so often overlooked in these dynamics, and the value that her emotional expression can provide is something that we hope that you can take away from this episode today. So thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy. First five are for you.
Okay. Hi, sir.
Hi, baby.
So today, I would love to ask you to dive into emotional expression and everything that is and involves for you as the dominant, meaning receiving my emotional expression and all that is for you.
Well, to start with, that was one of the biggest pieces of growth and the biggest learnings that I had in the whole process of my own growth into what it was really like to be dominant in an authentic way. Meaning, I'm sure we'll get into all of this more deeply, but the ways that your emotional expression has called me to be a better man, it's called me to rise, it's shown me where I needed to be better. It's been the most catalyzing factor in what has made me able to stand strong in my life in the way that I can, both in this relationship and outside.
Okay. So let's rewind us a little bit then. Back to when you kind of had this turning point and realization around my full expression, meaning the happiness, the joy, the bliss, down to the other side of the range of anger and grief and sadness and the varying amounts and everything in between. So tell me a little bit about the beginning of the realizations you had there.
As our listeners know, you went through a lot of emotional, like, unwinding in your process of kind of coming into submission. As we grew into this dynamic together, you have realized how much had to be unwound from your system.
Yeah, so let me pause there real quick, if you don't mind, because I do just want to share a little bit that I wasn't completely shut down emotionally. So early in our marriage, like, it wasn't that I was afraid to cry in front of you or I stuffed everything. So I wouldn't have um, looked at myself as an emotional stuffer, if you will. But when I started diving deeper into following you, I quickly learned that I didn't know what I didn't know. And there were a lot more emotions that needed to be, that I needed to allow to come to the surface and therefore express. So it was like I was kind of very narrow on my emotional expression, and it only started to change.
Well, what happened is I started stepping more into the dominant frame in our relationship because I had been a lot more of the free spirit, go with the flow kind of guy for a lot of my life up till this point. And as I started to step more into the dominant frame, the leading frame, the responsible frame in this relationship, and you started to step out of it, you saw all of the things that you stuffed, all of the places that you hadn't let yourself be okay to
which
feel.
which was a slower process.
Right. And I encouraged that every step of the way. I wanted you to be expressive with your feelings. Even before I knew how important it was to me to be connected to what you feel, I always tried to encourage you to that everything was okay, that you could be however you were.
Okay, I'm going to be in my chaos here and ask another question before you answer my other question. So, before the realization, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
earlier on, when you would feel me being sad, grieving, whatever it was, what was your experience of that?
Just wanting to make it better.
To fix me? Make me happy
I,
again?
I wouldn't have said it like that. It was, I really love you a lot. And so when I would see you feeling down, feeling sad, feeling upset, it wasn't like I wouldn't have looked at it like I need to fix you. That's what I was doing. It was, in some ways, I wasn't comfortable with you being upset. So it was, in a way, fixing because I was trying to change what you were feeling. And even in the most loving ways, like the ways that I would show up to you when you were feeling down to try to help bring you back up, my experience of that always was one of love, but yeah, not really realizing what I was doing.
That's an important aspect too, because it still is love. Like, you still love
100%.
me, even if you're like, Dawn is sad. I want to make her happy. Like, it seems like a very loving thing to do.
And that's the motivation for, that was always the motivation for me. I think it's the motivation for a lot of men who are trying their hardest to be good guys. So, yeah, as you started to feel more, what that did was it emphasized the ways and the places, all of the little places where I would do that, where I would try to change how you were feeling. And as you felt more, and therefore I tried to fix more, to change more, to influence how you were being emotionally more, we got to this point where it was, well, I remember you said at one point, it feels like I'm just like I'm the problem. Everything is about fixing me. Like everything's wrong with me because I was so engaged in trying to change how you felt. So at a certain point, that just became untenable. It didn't work anymore for me to try to change you and change how you were feeling when you just kept feeling more and feeling more. And I was encouraging you to express it, but then as soon as you did, I was trying to change it, trying to tell you, don't feel that way, feel this way, do this, change that, be like this.
Yeah, and for me, back to what that was like, now I can see it better looking back. And I was still in the judging my own emotions and also trying to get towards what I was still calling the better state. I want to be happy. I want to feel like I want to go out and have fun. And when I'm feeling down and sad and sometimes not understanding why, it made me sit there and wish that reality was different than it was.
I remember teaching you that phrase where I told you that it was like you were raging at reality when you were so unhappy with the way things were,
Yep.
with the way you felt. And you mentioned this a couple times now, this realization, this point that I got to where I realized this wasn't working. It was kind of an aha for me where I saw the fact that even though I love you and I accept you, and I saw all of the ways that I was responding to your emotions as trying to be helpful, what I was actually doing myself was raging at reality, the reality of how you felt, the reality of the fact that maybe you're sad right now, maybe you're angry at me, maybe you're upset about something that happened somewhere else in the world, or you're confused, whatever it was. As soon as I engaged with that emotion and tried to help guide you to a different place of feeling, now I wasn't accepting the reality of where you were at. And instead, what I was doing was at least energetically telegraphing to you that it's not okay to feel this that way, feel this way instead. Well, at the same time, I was coming to understand a lot more deeply what emotions are and where they come from. Because I believe that all emotional expressions are generated in some way or another by being or feeling out of control.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have this feeling response to being out of control, and that is the normal response. It's the way that it works. So I was coming to understand that, and then also seeing how you were getting more emotional, which meant you were feeling more out of control, which is exactly what submission is being out of control, being led by, taken care of, provided for by someone else instead of by yourself. So submission is going to be an inherently emotional experience. And then I was taking that emotion and telling you you were doing it wrong.
Without saying it that way. But that's what I felt without realizing it at the time.
And so that's when I told you that from here on forward, I'm going to receive all of your emotions. Whatever you are feeling, I'm going to receive all of that as your love for me. And I've made that shift for myself because I needed to be in a different frame of reference, a different I need to be seeing this differently if I wanted it to be in alignment, in congruence with how I was leading us and trying to lead our relationship. Like, I needed emotional expression from you because that was going to happen if you were going to be my submissive.
Right. I remember where we were sitting in the living room on the couch when we had this conversation,
And that showed how impactful of a conversation it was when you remember little details about something.
especially now. I remember it feeling like profound in my body, not really understanding the depths of it, but it seemed very important, if you will.
Yeah, it felt that way to me too. Because what I didn't realize up until I made that shift was that even though I was engaging with your emotions in a way that I thought was kind and loving and with it always had the intention of trying to be helpful. Not only was I telling you, don't feel that way, feel this way, which is telling you, when I say don't feel that way, feel this way, I'm telling you the natural feeling response that you are having is wrong. So not only was I doing that, I realized that in doing that, I was resisting being able to connect to your authentic feeling, to what you were really feeling, because I was trying to change it. I was trying to make it different because I was trying to engage with it like over here in you, like fixing, changing how you felt. I would even probably say manipulating how you felt when how you felt was the natural feeling that you had. And all of that was actually more about the way that I didn't feel comfortable with you having those natural feelings. Like it was my own walls, my own ego and my defenses against like the fear of your emotions hurting me that was causing me to try to change them. And I was hiding that underneath the cover of wanting to help you or be nice to you or help you feel better.
Yeah. So, those earlier years in this journey was a lot of unwinding for me, which meant the emotions started to come to the surface. And let's be real, majority of those emotions had nothing to do with you, but you were the receiver of them. And so, like, completely understand how it's like, from your point of view, that I'm over here being in this tornado of feels, getting wrapped up in it, feeling like I'm spiraling out of control because for more of the first times in my life, I'm truly learning how to feel emotions. And these are all coming from my past pain. Again, that most of it had nothing to do with you.
Well, right, because my walls were trying to change, shift, manipulate your emotions, but your walls had always kept you in control so that you didn't have to feel out of control. Because if you felt out of control, these are the emotions that you were trying to hide from that didn't feel okay or safe for you to feel.
Right.
So it was the process of going deeper into submission that brought you out of your own control mechanisms enough that you then were faced with having to feel these things, which activated my own defenses, trying to protect myself from the ways that your feelings had the potential to hurt me. So, and that's the loop that emotionally, I think most couples, dom sub or not, get caught in, where, again, and this is if he's kind of the masculine core, even if he's not acting that way, and if she's the feminine core, even if she's not acting that way, where she takes control to protect herself from feeling because it doesn't feel safe to be out of control. And he protects himself from being exposed to her feelings because he's been hurt by the emotions of women from his past. And that was my case, right? I had pain from my past, ways that I'd been hurt by women, ways that, like, my life had done damage to me. So when I'm convincing myself I'm trying to help you by like telling you don't cry or don't you're thinking about it wrong. The way that you're feeling, I understand that you feel that way, but really, if you think about it like this, then you wouldn't feel that way. When I'm doing that, what I'm doing is trying to not be hurt by the way that you're feeling.
Yeah. So, what was that like for you? So, we had that conversation. You said, all of your emotions are your love. Give it to me, baby.
Mm-hmm.
What was the beginning of that shift for you like? I don't remember my side of it, to be honest.
Well, I know you told me that this felt like a permission for you to feel like all of your feelings and share them with me.
Yes, I remember that. I mean, more specifics of like,
Well, what happened was you had that permission now. You felt
yeah,
that permission
yeah,
and you took full advantage of it.
go me.
So you would now feel more free to come to me when you were sad, to come to me when you were angry or upset or feeling afraid or whatever. And it took me a while to get better at this because at first I still had the same defenses come up,
Hmm.
but anytime I would do that, then you would like now you with that permission would say, you said all my emotions are love, so and you would kind of call me on the carpet when I would resist it or when I would get defensive in any way. So what it did is you continued to express yourself and really your expression of how you felt got bigger and got bigger and got bigger. It made me see where I did this. And so that's where I had to then be willing to feel my own resistance. Like where is this coming from? What is why is it that I react this way when she is sad? Why is it I react this way when she's angry? So, early on it was just me failing and collapsing and falling apart in this over and over and over again. And I remember one time specifically after you were feeling down and then I responded poorly to it and you got then angry at me because of the way I responded and that I wasn't doing this in the way that I said that I was going to.
Integrity.
Yeah, I was completely out of integrity with what it was that I had told you that I was going to make true. And I was so like frustrated with myself, with you, with everything. I remember just shortly after that I left to go drive somewhere and I stopped on the side of the road and I hit my head on the steering wheel. I was just like doing this, just like, and the horn honked once. I was just like
So fitting.
bonking my head into the steering wheel, trying to like just get a hold of myself. And one time I hit it so hard the horn honked, and that kind of just snapped me out of it. I wish I could remember specifically what that was. Yeah, it was really the process of me seeing my own reactivity. It was the process of me seeing my own discomfort with you just having an authentic emotional experience.
And that's the one important aspect here is we all need to get comfortable with emotions. And there's a lot of work there for everyone because this goes back to our childhood and we don't remember all of what happened to us. All of the times when we were told that we were a baby if we were crying or boys don't cry or whatever.
Big girls don't cry.
Right, right.
Well, let me add something there because this is where the different paths of dominance and submission can really diverge is around this issue of emotions. This is where it can really diverge from where the dominant uses the power, the authority, the position of leadership in the relationship and in the submissive's life as a tool to clamp down on her, to suppress her, to push her down so that she doesn't make him uncomfortable. I think I've said it this way in something I've written before. Dominants that do this are like using the power that they have to shut her up. So the other way that this can go, if the dominant is not going to use his power, his authority in the relationship to shut her up, to clamp down on her expression, clamp down on her emotions, is he's going to use his power, his authority, the permission to take the lead that she has granted him, and use that to help set her expression free. And I feel like it gets done a lot more the first way, where there's suppression being expected of the submissive, but that can only end up leading to more resentment. It can only end up leading to more of what's already the problem. The suppression is the problem, and more suppression doesn't solve that problem, it makes the problem worse.
Right. Do you have any other examples of what it was like for you in receiving some of the emotions that more often than not are judged?
Yeah, because as you started to feel safe enough to express, and as I used that authority to encourage more expression, you started to feel a lot of the feelings that have been suppressed for a long time, because you shut down a lot of your expression, not all of it. You you've never been afraid to cry around me,
Right.
but there were things like you being like anger that never felt okay for you, that suddenly now you had past anger start coming to the surface, and that you needed to feel.
Yeah. So the permission to feel that I received from you,
Mm-hmm.
that was what you were mirroring to me. That helped me connect with accepting my own emotions. This is why relationships are mirrors. And so, as I accepted anger for really what was the first time in my life, because going back to childhood, for whatever reason, I adapted the belief that anger was not okay. I was really uncomfortable around angry people. So I tried not to be angry. And if I was angry, it was like, stuff it. And so it wasn't that I didn't feel any of it, it was this unconscious judgment.
You used to have a way that you would express a little bit of anger way back in the past in our relationship.
Please share.
You, if you got frustrated with something and you were like upset about it, you would make this little noise where you would go like,
I figure that's where you were going.
and then how we were way back then, I'd be like, "What's wrong?" And you'd say nothing. It doesn't seem like nothing. I'm fine. Okay. And then we would move on. But that was like there was something wrong. There was something that was bothering you that you pushed down in those moments.
Yeah, and that probably was what I'm going to label as smaller anger, is just like a frustration of things not going the way I want them to
Yeah.
with whatever I was doing. Um, but for me, it was the first time in my life where I actually had to face some of the anger. And I remember three specific times. And so it wasn't like I had this endless rage that needed to come out of me. Um, but I do remember having it surface and feeling like it physically needed to move through my body. I remember being on the bed, thrashing, punching pillows, throwing pillows, punching the bed, kind of just screaming whatever wanted to come out of my mouth at specific people from my past, the ways that I've been hurt. And you were sitting there with me, just letting me be wild. And that was meaningful to me in having you just be there. And you were encouraging it
Mm-hmm.
to fully be present, to fully come out. And it was as if I could like witness myself in it because it kind of felt silly, but I was fucking angry.
Yeah.
And again, it was the permission to feel it. And it didn't last very long, and then it was gone.
Yeah, and that gets at a really important point is for me to be able to sit there in the presence of that emotion, to be able to hold myself together when you were feeling angry like that, that was a whole process that I had to work myself through. Because when I'm uncomfortable with how you're feeling, and my tendency is to dive in and to fix and shape and whatever your emotions, that's happening because I don't feel okay in the presence of that energy that you're feeling. So I had to learn how to breathe and calm myself and not need to say anything, to not need to jump in and engage, but to be able to actually sit here while you expressed and felt over there and allow you to have that experience. And it was, I witnessed it being really powerful, like you said, for me just to be able to be there, for you to be able to be angry about ways that you'd been hurt in your past just in my presence. And it seems like, in part, what was healing about that was the fact that you could be angry around someone else. Like you just gave yourself permission to even be angry at all, aside from the fact that you were expressing this anger that you had stuffed.
Again, permission
Mm-hmm.
for me to feel it. Because then some anger surfaced at you.
Right. And it was way easier to sit present with you in the anger that you felt at other people from what other people had done to hurt you in the past. That was one level of this for me. That wasn't level zero. I didn't even have the ability to do that before I had kind of done this work to get to a point where I decided to let receive all of your emotions as love. But in learning to be present and to breathe and relax and be okay as you were not, like, not feeling okay, yeah, I was able to get to a point where you having that anger and being angry like that, I could be okay. I could just sit there and witness it. But then when it came up the ways that I'd hurt you and those things came back to the surface, that was a much higher level of being able to hold myself and ground myself and not get reactive and not get defensive and not try to explain myself and justify myself, but to really sit there and witness you in your anger at me so I could learn from it. And so I could feel, really feel the ways that that I had hurt you, rather than trying to defend myself.
I remember those moments because I had removed myself and went for a walk to really tune into, like, is this real? And I recognized that by the time I got back from my walk, I had to express this.
Mhm.
And I didn't I didn't want to be angry at you in that moment. I understood that this surfaced from the past because I hadn't ever dealt with it.
Mhm.
By this point in my journey, I understood that I had to say these things to you. I had to share everything that wanted to come out of my mouth. And as I did that, again, it was like this, I'm not even experiencing these things right now. I thought I was like over this. Like, what is this? But as you received it, you just, it was as if you stood there and took it.
Mhm. That's exactly what I did.
Once I moved that energy out of me, it was almost like a switch was flipped, and I was able to, like, let go of it in a new way.
Mhm.
And it was this beautiful moment where we got to come back together and hug and feel each other's love despite the anger that just come out of my mouth. And it was able to be left in the past in a whole new way because I was willing to bring it to you and express it without fear of what you were going to say or do. So tell me, what was that truly like for you?
Well, it's a profound sense of strength that I feel when I can be here and be okay while you are angry at me, while you are lashing out at me because of the of something that I have done that was hurtful to you in the past. I can't fix the past. I can't change the past. I cannot go back in time. But for me to be able to sit and be present and not lose my shit, not fall into shame or guilt or defensiveness or any of those things, it it really did. It was like a catalyzing experience for me of being able to feel the strength that I can feel internally if I'm able to be present even with that.
So you said all of her emotions are her love.
Mhm.
How is anger love?
Well, in a couple of ways, because if you are angry at me and you shut down and you don't share it, you don't speak it, you don't express it, now you're pulling back. Like there's disconnection built in to the fact that you aren't speaking up and sharing the way that I've impacted you, the way that I've hurt you in ways big and small, right? Because there were some of these things that were really kind of little things that weren't a big deal, and there were some things that were more hurtful things. But I had to encourage all of it to come out of you. So if you have that feeling, if you have that authentic experience of being angry at me that you had suppressed and you don't let it out, now there's all of the seeds there for resentment. There's the building blocks for walls between us. So you being willing to engage with that anger and share it with me and like let it out with me is you loving me and loving this relationship enough to let it come to the surface and let it come out so that we can let it go and leave it behind us. So it's not impacting us every day for the rest of our lives.
And so, really, what I'm doing is letting you into my true emotional experience of you and of life
Hmm.
and sharing that with you. Like, that's a vulnerable thing.
Yeah, it's vulnerable for you and for me.
So, really, it's sharing my heart with you, which is why it's sharing love with you.
100%. Because let's talk about the things that you had that you were expressing anger for that had nothing to do with me. If I can receive that, if I can let you feel that and you are willing to give that to me, to share that with me, to open yourself up to these painful pieces of your inner experience and share that with me, to be vulnerable in that way in my presence, what is a more loving thing to do than to receive that from you, to be able to hold you in that, to let you move through that with me being the one there to hold you while you do.
Yeah. And my experience of you, even in the anger, was just incredible acceptance. And literally, like, this is okay, right? It's not good or bad. This is okay because it's what is and what is real in the moment. And that's like reflecting loving myself in my true experience. And that's what you got to mirror to me.
I remember one of the times when you were thrashing around in the bed, punching things, when I told you you're cute when you're angry.
That's right. I remember, I thought I remember giggling when I was
Uh-huh.
angry, and that's what it was at.
Yeah, because I mean, it did bring a little levity to the moment, but it was how I was experiencing you was there was so much energy there. There was so much chaos. And I had experienced so much of you in this suppressed, shut down kind of ho hum, going through the motions, trying not to let any big emotions out. I'd experienced so much of that that this was like there was life there. There was so much energy there, and it was adorable in its own way. And I told you that, and you kind of giggled, but you also got kind of pissed that I was making light of how you were feeling, which, okay, fair enough. But it was cute. And me saying that, which was what I that was what I was true for me in that moment, it kind of poked you a little bit and helped you get even more of the anger out.
It did because I truly felt deeply angry at the people who had hurt me. And while, again, it wasn't happening in the moment, by that point on my journey, I knew that it had to be felt. And on the other side of feeling that was a beautiful gift that I hadn't yet uncovered. And truly, it has helped me accept emotions big and small. And it was like one of the first access points of me recognizing how limiting my own acceptance of emotions to this small box was truly limiting my expression of life in so many other ways. So that's another conversation in itself. But I want to share that because it's so important in my journey of submission to feel this receptivity of my emotions from you. It's crucial.
So all of your emotions are love to me also means being able to be there with you when you're sad about something that has nothing to do with me, and not try to make you not sad, but to let you be sad until you're not sad anymore, and to just be there with you in that to the extent that I'm able to be, and to the extent that you can let me in. Because now, again, that sadness is there for a reason. It has to be felt. The way that I have explained this to you and that I've taught it to clients as well is that any emotion that you feel, that you felt in your past, that didn't get expressed, that didn't come out of you at the time, it's still there. Like, you're walking around carrying that weight with you, and until it comes out, until you can let yourself feel it, it's impacting you. It's impacting your relationship, it's impacting your life, it's probably impacting your physical health. Like, these things can make us sick, and they can impact our physical bodies. So again, if you are willing to open up and let me into these places that you have shut down and open them up, and I'm able to receive it from you without trying to do anything other than just let you have that experience, I'm I'm letting your honest, authentic, emotional experience just be there. And that's how that becomes love to me, because I'm loving you for who you are, where you are. I'm loving you for what you are actually feeling, not for how I'm trying to get you to be so you don't hurt me, or so you don't threaten me or make me triggered.
So, for the men listening who are like, Andrew, you fell off your rocker. I think you're really crazy here because she is crazy and I can't handle her emotions. What's your words of wisdom for that?
Well, to some extent, that guy is right, because there is a chaotic nature to any woman's emotions.
Absolutely.
They are unpredictable, they come and go like the wind. There's no congruency or consistency to them. One thing might make you happy one moment and it might make you mad the next.
Yes.
And so this is why people label women as crazy, because you're not built to be the same all the time. You're built to be this emotional being. So you can't, like, a guy cannot handle that kind of emotional chaos without understanding its value. Like, you're right, you can't handle it. You have to see it for what it is instead of trying or wishing it was different. Because the reality is, like, as men, we get very stuck in our logic. We get stuck in our ways. We see things, have a tendency to see things as very black and white, right and wrong. The There's a process to go through to get where any where from where we are to where we're going. And what a woman's emotions can do for a man is to bring an energy of, like, chaotic aliveness or erotic aliveness into your life, because it's not just that she's crazy and unpredictable and chaotic, it's also that she is full of energy in a way that we're not as men. So if you can open your heart up as a man enough to let her feel how she feels, to accept her emotional expression as being whatever it is, you are not just opening yourself up to be hurt. You are opening her up to give you all of the all of the energy, all of the affection, all of the love that guys think is not possible. Like most men legitimately reach a point where they think that it's not actually possible to be loved by a woman in the way that we want to be loved. And what I'm telling men in saying this is it is possible to be loved by a woman in the way that you want to be loved. Intense sexuality, massive amounts of affection and adoration, the nurturing, loving nature of a woman, plus all of her sexual intensity and desire. Like, you can have all of that if you can accept her emotional expression, because all of those things are emotions. And you can't tell her, I want you to feel these loving, these sexual, these affectionate emotions. I want lots more of that. And I want you to stop feeling all of those ones, the sadness, the anger, the grief, the rage. Like, those you have to shut down. You can't have it both ways. That's why you're not getting the love that you want from a woman, is because you're trying to shut down all of the parts of her emotions that feel unsafe to you. And you're making it about her being crazy when it's really you being unable to open your heart enough to let her feel.
So, how did your experience of me change, shift, whatever, as I started feeling more of my emotions and, let's just say, letting go of the stored emotional poison from my past? How has your experience of me changed?
I think I need to back up one step to to make the point that as I grew in my strength, as I grew in my own dominance, as I stepped forward more into my life, what happened as a result of that wasn't that you felt less, it was that you started to feel more. Your emotions got bigger as I got stronger. They didn't get smaller.
Yes. Clarifying note. For a while, to the both of us, it felt like we were probably dealing with a fire hose of emotions because there were a lot of them stored in my past.
Right.
And so that chaotic ride was pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
It it changed, right? So how did that all change in your words?
Right. So, as I got stronger and you got more emotional and I dropped the walls and stopped trying to control how you felt, my experience of you was that you started to come alive. Not only were you crying almost every day
Yes.
and having these fits of anger and rage and the grief, oh my God, the amount of grief that you have gone through and felt and experienced over the last several years. It's like you've had to grieve so much of your past being the way that it was. You've had to feel so much pain for the fact that your life went the way that it went, as you've been able to see it and accept it and witness yourself in your own experience of life. When you're not avoiding all of that pain, but you're engaging with it, the amount of grief that you have gone through, the waves of that have just been intense for you and for me. But my experience of you as you've done this has been one of you continuing to come alive more and more and more, because nobody can tell me that a woman's emotions are lacking energy. There is an unlimited amount of energy in a woman's emotions.
Well, because emotions are energy in motion.
Right. Emotion, energy in motion. So watching you become more filled with energy. I've seen your posture change. I've seen your eyes are open wider. I've seen you more affectionate to me, but also to your children, also to other people in your life. I've watched just all of this beautiful energy in you bubble up to the surface and be present in our relationship, in your life outside of our relationship. And, especially it's brought your sexuality to the surface, because sex for a woman is also an emotional expression.
Right.
So, it's like I've used this analogy with you before. It's like the difference between watching a 9-inch black and white television and being fully immersed in a 3D color, like 4K world of just aliveness. Is really the difference between what it feels like. And that's even on a moment to moment basis, right? Because if you go into even moments where you shut down and you're not expressing, I can also feel the way that all of that energy I'm talking about is just gone. It's not there for you, it's not there for me either. And I've become really quite reliant on you feeling and you being in that chaos because of the energy that it brings to me. So I went from trying to stop it to encouraging you to bring more and more of it, of because I saw its value. It can really be a source of energy and of love and of eros and passion for us, even if it's anger, even if it's grief. It's all the same. It's all love because it's coming from you.
So you've learned to accept my emotions. You receive them as love. You've cultivated this strength and groundedness in yourself in our relationship. It's been beautiful. How else do you see that um, improving your life in other areas?
That's a really good question because I see it just in my ability to handle chaotic situations outside of our relationship. I can, because I've used what I think is the ultimate training ground to handle chaos, letting a woman be fully chaotic with you in your presence and learning to be okay with it. What could be more chaotic than that? Maybe war?
Yeah.
Maybe. Depends on the woman.
Well,
But what it's done is it's helped me to be very solid and grounded and present in my moment to moment life outside of the relationship. One great example is that I notice is while I'm driving. Like, let's say I'm driving and there's a crash in front of me and there's a bunch of traffic swerving and slamming on the brakes trying to avoid it. Instead of being caught up in all of that chaos, I can almost experience time slowing down. And I can be very present with all of that chaos and see what's happening rather than getting lost in fear, rather than shutting down or pulling back or dissociating. I can stay very present with a very chaotic dangerous situation and handle it much better. And we've been in this. We do a lot of driving and traveling, and the way that I can handle those really kind of dangerous driving situations, pulling a 15,000 pound camper, sometimes even I impress myself with it.
Yeah, we definitely had at least two that I can think of, moments where you avoided an accident because of something else going on, in a split second,
Yeah.
all while pulling the camper.
And that's a that's something I probably would not have been nearly as proficient at in the past. It's something that being able to handle chaotic situations without getting triggered, without getting activated, but just staying present, learning to breathe and to be conscious and aware. And that shows up all over in my life. It shows up in my ability to extend this level of presence to the clients that I work with, and to be able to be present with them and their emotional experiences and help them by seeing into and through their feelings, and to guide them into a better place in their own life. It's just a couple examples, but just it's a very profound and meaningful experience of life that I have now because of what I've learned through being present with and receiving your emotions.
So there was a point on my journey where I kind of recognized that this emotional awareness and emotional acceptance is like the entry point into submission. I also think it's the entry point for a dominant to receive submission, because as like you shared before, as I've connected to my emotional experience, and this is a moment to moment thing, it's only through that mirrored permission that I receive from you that I've been able to over and over and over accept whatever I am feeling in the moment and be willing to share that with you, express whatever it is. And then the beautiful aspect is a lot of these emotions seem really like fleeting, where they get to flow through me. And when you were talking before about that aliveness, that erotic aspect of it, that's just a felt experience that has shifted for me. And the way that you've explained to me in your connection to that essence of me, that emotional nature, as being crucial to you, again, permission. It's like you're inviting more of me to the surface. And so, yes, that has brought out more of my sexuality, which we can dive into on a whole nother topic. But do you have anything more to share about needing that emotional expression as information, as energy? Like, do you have anything else to
There,
expand on there?
there are two things that I'll add to kind of wrap up this conversation. One of them, like you said, information. It really is important. Your emotions are important as information to me, because if I'm going to lead you, if I'm going to take charge, to like take a position of authority in your life, and I'm going to tell you I want you to do what I say rather than deciding for yourself. And that's really what a dominant is asking of a submissive, right?
Absolutely.
If I want to do that, and I want you to give that experience to me, that experience of you following my lead. First of all, I'm any man is looking not just for performative obedience. He's looking for a feeling that he gets from that submissive obeying him, that feeling he gets from the submissive following him. So I need to be able to not just tell you what to do, I need to be able to receive back what you're feeling. And if I'm only willing to accept one version of feeling, then I can't let you have any kind of authentic experience.
Mm.
So instead, I have to be able to give you a command. I have to be able to step into the dominant frame and tell you what to do, how to do it, where we're going, what's going to happen. But then witness your true, authentic response to that. And if that true, authentic response is something other than what I intend or desire from you, I need to then be able to use that information to help make that experience better for you and for me. Because you want to follow, but it doesn't mean it's always easy.
Right.
But if I can't let you have an authentic experience of following me, even if that authentic experience is a no, when you maybe even want it to be a yes, if I can't give you the freedom to have that authentic experience, then I can't learn what it's going to take to help you get to a yes. The only thing I can do then is try to force you, and that's never going to give me the feeling that I'm looking for out of leading you. And the last thing that I'll say about that is that being able to feel what you feel is what I'm talking about here. It's not just standing here rigid and inflexible and terrified and like gripping onto something because I'm just trying to be present with your emotions. The whole point of this is to open my heart up enough to you so that I can connect to what it is that you are feeling and to let that all the way in. Because I like there's something in that, there is that energy in that, there's love in that that fills my heart up in a way that can only happen if I really connect to your authentic emotional experience. And I can only do that if I'm not trying to shift it or change it or manipulate it or control it.
So receiving the anger, the rage, the grief,
Grief.
the sadness, and the love, the joy, the happiness, all of that truly can be received as love and energy, aliveness.
Right. And that's an important point to end on here. We're not just talking about the negative, the hard emotions, the heavy emotions here, because if I give you permission to feel all of your feelings, it's not just only sadness, grief, and anger that come out. As those emotions are accepted and loved, guess what else has come to the surface from you? It's been massive, overwhelming amounts of affection and gratitude and appreciation because this is probably a different podcast we can do, is your experience of letting your emotions be set free. Because what I've experienced of you is that an intensity of love and joy and happiness and everything else that's come right along with you accepting the emotions that get stuffed. Because the reality is you don't stuff being happy, you don't stuff being joyful, you don't stuff being affectionate. Those just come out as they come out.
Yeah, I didn't get this like fire hose of happiness one day.
No, but so you judge when you judged all those other emotions and you push those ones down, they start to essentially fill you up, and that needs to come out. And then just there's so much more joy and happiness and everything present in your day-to-day life and experience and in how I get to feel you. So this isn't just about opening myself up to all of the hard heavy stuff. It's about making it possible for you to feel more of all of your feelings, including and especially the biggest one I feel from you all the time is this sense of gratitude.
Well, thank you for giving me the permission to feel. Thank you for receiving all of me. And thank you for sharing all that you did today. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for asking great questions.
My pleasure.